What's going on? It's the Rap Nerd, and I was able to see Weapons last night. It was late, so I did not get to do my review, but the good thing is I slept on it, and now I am here with my clear and concise thoughts about it. So, the movie takes place in this suburban town, and at 2:17 a.m., a group of kids get out of their bed and leave their homes running into the dark, not to be seen again. And the real question of what's going on is all of these kids belong to the same teacher's classroom. So you can imagine what kind of things that stirs up and people thinking that she has something to do with it. And this big mystery takes place wondering where the kids are and why they left. Now this is not a spoiler, this is all in the trailer and it's pretty much what the movie is built on. So I did not spoil it if you haven't seen it or even knew what it was about. But I can say that I absolutely loved this movie and it is my #2 favorite film right under Sinners, man. This is like yet another great depiction of what horror is at its best because it encompasses so many different things. You know, that subject matter, like I mentioned, with missing kids is a very, very real thing. It's a very heavy thing to deal with, but somehow Zach Krager, as the writer and director, was still able to make this a fun and enjoyable watch, along with it being heavy in its material, but also scary and creepy and all of these different things that you would want from a horror film. The thing about this movie is it's very enjoyable. There are other movies that kind of tackle the same type of targeting of kids that have released this year, but those were incredibly somber to the point where I don't know if I would watch them again because of how devastating they feel. They weren't fun watches at all. But I think Weapons is able to give us that same type of heaviness, but all the bells and whistles of what you would want from a popcorn horror flick, as well as having something to say overall once you really get into what's going on. And one of the characteristics that I really love about the movie is it feels like this twisted fairy tale, almost like Hansel and Gretel, just from a very malicious perspective. And it's not at all like that movie, but it just, the way that the lore is handled with what's going on, it's definitely speaks to something old worldly brought to today's time. And with it having this fairy tale nature, it adds to the atmosphere and the aesthetic, the way that the sound and score are in the film. It's very in your face when it needs to be, but when the moments are quiet, there are these slight synth waves that you honestly don't really know it's a part of the movie until you kept hearing it throughout. But it is very light and it ups the tension whenever a character has to venture into the darkness and do some investigating themselves. It is tension filled from the jump, which also in turn ups the creep factor. Whenever it gets dark in this movie, you know that you are in for something and you're automatically on your heels. And things still do take place during the daytime, and that's what makes it so creepy, because if you can manage to scare people and keep that tension high when it's bright like it is now, you know once the lights get low, everything is kicking up a notch. Which gets me into the scares. I think this movie is scary as hell from a traditional standpoint. It has some good jump scares in it, but it also has just some flat out heart pumping shit in it, for lack of better terms. And if you've seen the trailers, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the way people move and do things. It is intense. I like that it's a twist on another subgenre that we know about. And of course, I don't want to say anything in case you haven't seen it, but when you want to talk about rabid animals, holy moly. This is one of those movies that particular type of horror can be extremely scary depending on how it's handled, and it is handled very well. And I'm being vague as hell, but if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was relentless because it happens in such close quarters. Usually this type of rabid nature happens like in the open where people are just running in fields and all of that, but no, this is like in your face in the small spaces, and it just makes it very intense. And there are plenty of moments when I was like, oh shit, just added to the overall thrill of the movie. And to circle back with the fairy tale thing, I think the way that the movie is structured kind of makes it feel like a twisted fairy tale, like you're kind of opening a book and reading chapter for chapter. And I think that the way that they structured it made this movie even more interesting, because as the chapters continue, they're not called chapters, but I'm just calling them that. But the way they, continue and it's set up, you start learning things about the pieces of the story that you saw before that added context to it. And granted, when you see it, there's enough context to know what's going on, but seeing the other parts just adds a whole different perspective and layer to what you saw initially. There's stuff that's in plain view that I didn't even take notice of until we are later in the story, and it's like, oh, that's who that was. And another thing that aids the entertainment factor is that this movie is actually pretty funny. I'm really fascinated with how Zach was able to make this film extremely serious, heavy, scary, creepy, but also genuinely funny. Like, there are no moments of quips or somebody just using a whole scene to be comedic. It's just very situational, where you have people shouting things when stuff happens that's, I think, comes from a realistic place, so it makes it funny. It's not like people just sit around and watch stuff happen, and you actually hear people react how we do in the theater seeing something crazy, and I think that just makes it funny. There's a lot of ADR in the back during scenes that have a scene that is very tense and scary, but this little bit of adds a little bit of like levity to the situation without also ruining the sequence. Now, I don't know where people feel with that, but I feel like it was done great, because again, none of the comedics ever ruin a scene. And the last thing I'll say about this film is it has a lot to say in regards to its subject matter. There are a lot of different ways that you can take it, especially there are a lot of different ways that you can take it. One for me is the fact of getting older and what that means for the children of folks who are getting older. I think that's one big one. And also this idea of addiction and how that affects those around you, especially kids. And that's something that I got from this movie that I didn't get from Barbarian. Barbarian felt like just like a really good horror thriller with just this wacky shit going on, while here there is a message in what's going on to the entire film, and it's up for you to interpret. So I'm gonna stop there before I end up spoiling it. A great film. Definitely about to order the Steelbook off of Amazon as soon as it hits, because this movie is going to go in my collection. God, what a fantastic movie. Like I said, it's my number 2 film right under Sinners, and I cannot wait to watch it again. If you want to have a good time, please go to the theater and see it, because it's deserving of it. And if you've seen Weapons, let me know in the comments what you thought. No spoilers, please, because the film just dropped. And if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace.
RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy. Instead of banking on it, now rapping is just a hobby.